Hello, dear friends and astrology lovers. In this video, I will briefly talk about the male and female principle and its eternal game of yin and yang, inspired by the eclipses that occur on the Aries Libra axis in 2023 and 2024. But in this video, I will not mention what will happen during these eclipses from the astrological point of view. I will make another video about this. This is more about the philosophy of yin and yang. And of course, I will connect this philosophy of Taoism with that what is happening now in the world. These changes that we see on macro plane, which is actually about that change of yin and yang on the eastern and western part of the world. But there will be more videos about eclipses concretely. And now I'm recording this from Sri Lanka, where I'm here in Ayurvedic, very small Ayurvedic spa center, which is absolutely fantastic and that I would recommend to everybody of you. And I'm here visiting actually my friends, and I will come here later during this year and next years with my clients for retreat, for practicing yoga and just relaxing and balancing yin and yang if you want. And under this video, I will leave the contact of those places. I know 2 places in Sri Lanka, and this is the main one near Kandy in the mountains. And I will leave it under this video if you wish to visit their web pages or to contact them, to ask them if you can come here and maybe to come and to see this beauty where everything seems balanced. I recommend this very much to you. So this video is a little bit different from others. I actually made this video a few months ago, but I wanted to record it here. I leave it to record it here, even if I'm not going to talk about not about Sri Lanka or India. I will talk about yin yang, which is more Chinese thing, but somehow I wanted to record this in the East, which is now this part of the world that will create our future, we can say. So the Taoists say the Tao gives birth, but is not born. It gives life to a being, but it is not a being. That's what Lao Tzu says. He probably lived in the 5th or between 5th and the 3rd century BC. He also say Tao gives birth, but it is not born. So he who changes is only unchangeable. The unborn can give birth, the unchangeable can cause change. And the Tao is usually in Western languages translated as a path. So I'm saying this a little bit about Tao at the beginning, just to introduce actually the idea of yin and yang through Taoistic philosophy. The Tao has 2 sides. One is absolute and the other is relative. The eternal Tao, which is absolute, contains within itself the principle or code of creation. It is the emptiness that is not emptiness and can be nominated as light. You know that Taoism, maybe you know that Taoism is full of those paradoxes, and life is paradoxical in the theory of yin and yang. The other relative side of Tao is existence itself. Existence appears out of nothing, and it is impossible to describe why it is the way as it is. So we can know, the laws, but we do not know why they are such. So we know the law, but we don't know who created the law, because nobody maybe created it. The movement of Tao creates actually yin and yang. The transition of yang to yin is the transition from energy to matter. The change of yang and yin and vice versa is continuous. In that eternal game of the male and female principle, everything arises and everything disappears, and so it happens eternally. Many Russian and Western philosophers philosophized in a similar way, although they were not Taoists. So let's mention Heraclitus, maybe many know about him, that he was talking that everything is created through the conflict of opposites. As well as Taoists, he also spoke about the cyclical change of elements. The Chinese view of life is cyclical, and they believe that Looking into the future is a confusing viewpoint. If we want to know how everything functions, or what will happen in the future, we should look into the past where everything originated. So the cyclical view of the world is not only characteristic of China, but also of archaic cultures and has been maintained to this day in rural areas of some parts of the world, for example, Eastern Europe, and many other parts of the world, of course. The Western view of life, which is now dominant in the world, it is dominant actually in science and also in religion and also in many philosophies, and it's linear. It's not cyclical, it's linear. And together with my colleagues, I published a publication about this cyclical view of your life, and I also have lectures about this in my website, but they're not in English, unfortunately. As you know, I don't publish many things in English, unfortunately, but maybe it will be one day, we'll see. So if you ask Taoists how life is created, the answer is that it is created by the movement of Tao. Yin and Yang are the result of this movement of Tao. So if you ask Taoists, why do they have 5 elements? They will say this is the result of movement of Tao. When Tao is very active, then we have Yang. When it's passive, we have Yin. And in the middle, we have balance. And this is water and fire, and between we have wood and metal, and earth is the balance between them. But if you ask Western philosophers, how come they have 4 elements? They don't know. They cannot explain this to you, why they have, and how they come into play. And they actually forgot about it. And not to mention, they don't speak about the 5th element, which is ether, and which is absolutely the key one, and that we now need to learn about it more than in the last centuries. However, we will not here talk about Taoism in general. I would like to say only a few more things about importance of balance of yin and yang, and about this balance that is created in the Western culture. So Carl Gustav Jung wrote about enantiodromy in his book Eon, and he took the name of Eon, of this idea of enantiodromy. He took this idea from Heraclitus, from Ephesus, and also from Taoists, because they all speak about this. Namely, Jung spoke about that, about the fact when one principle is too dominant, then it turns into its opposite. And that happens because the nature of all of things is such that it strives for balance. And what do we see now in the Western world? We see madness and chaos. And why do we see it? One explanation can be that the overemphasized yang principle in previous centuries, through philosophy, religion, social order, politics, and so on, actually creates this chaos, actually creates the sudden born of yin principle. When you insist on yang, then suddenly yin will appear sooner or later. And also when that happens, yang declines. So now we see that in Western culture, male principle is lost, not only now, we can speak in the last decades, maybe even after the Second World War. And yin strengthens and strengthens and strengthens, and now is maybe reaching its top, because they're always complementary. So yang is now so weak that yin prevails, we can say. But the trouble here is that yang arranges and creates everything, and yin destroys everything. So we need domination of yang. Just a bit, yang should always be a little dominant, and yin should be in a little lower position, and people should create this balance like this all the time. And these people who live in the eastern part of the world, they really know about that. Otherwise, if yin is too dominant, we have chaos and destruction. So let's let's now see how that actually manifests in today's politics. What are the ruling world politicals doing now on the West? They deal with rituals and magic. They are even obsessed with that. They even use the technological weapons for the magical purposes. And why is it so? Because for centuries, they forbid the knowledge and the understanding of the importance of magic by making it like a witchcraft, especially through the Catholic Church. So it would be actually correct to respect the male principle that appears through philosophy, intuition, and theology. This is kind of male thing. And at the same time to respect female principle that appears through energy, instinct, and magic. And when I hear speak about magic, I just want to tell you that I speak about magic as Pavel Florensky understood it. He was a Russian scientist and theologist, mystic also, and he said that he understands magic as the union between man and earth, and he understands theology as the union between man and heaven. And that's how I understand it also. Both Carl Gustav Jung and Mircea Eliade, as you know, important scientists in the sphere of psychology, mythology, and so, they warned that if Yang is very weak, then it will happen so-called decadence. The decadence will happen. And it is true now on the West. So now the question is there any place in the world where yin and yang are possibly in balance or can reach any sort of balance? Yes, of course. I think that China is the candidate for this traditionally. Maybe Slavic countries also, because traditionally also they have quite good balance. India, Sri Lanka, and this part of the world, at least that's what I know. And maybe even some other parts of the world are candidates, you know. And these are actually those parts of the world that are waking up now. So maybe in the future we will see Muslim countries, perhaps Africa, Latin countries also. We will see. Maybe they will also be candidates for this, and will be able to reach balance between yin and yang in any sense. In 2023, eclipses begin to appear on Libra Aries axis, as we said. And we are going from Libra to Aries, so means we need Aries, we need male principle, we need yang. You know, so also we need yin, but we are going towards yang. So what that can mean? Well, this direction of energy is speaking about that people will be more combative. People will actually need to fight a bit more. The question is, however, whether in our time anyone can fight. Because when you now see what is happening in Ukraine, they force people to fight. They pay people a lot of money to go there, to die and to fight. So something is deeply wrong, you know. It looks like people cannot fight anymore. We are tired of wars. And Nikola Tesla said that in the future, machines will fight among themselves. He said we will not need wars as before. And we are already going into that, because if you know that Mars was retrograde and stayed 6 months in Gemini sign, we actually had this year already, and at the end of the year 2022, we had sorts of war that were wars of communication on satellites. And now I think it is more and more happening in Ukraine, and it will be in other parts of the world. We will see that how they will fight, if they fight in Taiwan and some other place of the world. And I think that they fight on satellites much more than we know. And that this fight, which is like one of the biggest wars in history, most probably, of humanity now. Of course, Ukraine is just a place where they do it, you know, but it is not the war between Ukraine and Russia. It is something completely different. This is the fight between two parts of the world. And I think it will end as a cosmic war, actually. and some sort of a satellite war. We will really have that war, something like that, as Nikola Tesla thought it will happen. Now, the further question arises whether the young has to fight for his survival through killing, or it can be somehow else. Can we cultivate young to exist but not to fight? And of course, it is possible, and we can also look into the ancient cultures, for example, in Chinese culture, what they are doing. They are actually studying martial arts, Qigong, Kung Fu, and other, and they call it arts, and they emphasize their defensive function. So, of course, we can use this young energy in this way. It is certainly better than to fight. However, what awaits us in the future few years is a real struggle for survival, I have to say that. And that will also force people who live on the West to strengthen their yang. And we saw that many demonstrations that are against governments in the West, they're already violent. And maybe, unfortunately, I have to say, they will be even more violent in the next 2 years. And this is because people will really need to fight for surviving. Now we can ask ourselves how we can, as individuals, balance yin and yang. What can we do something as individuals, and what that can be? Well, if I want to exaggerate a little bit, I could say that now it is necessary to have a healthy balance for a man. And the man should maybe develop spiritual life, be more introspective, and engage in meditation and self-knowledge techniques. Maybe they can also study defensive martial arts, and in that way strengthen this balance between yin and yang. And if I want to exaggerate it even more, I could say that women in today's time should study philosophy, mathematics, be rational. Maybe we need that from a woman. And that will maybe help both sides to balance between themselves and to avoid negative appearances of these two sides. We see that I say I'm a little bit exaggerating this now, yes, but we already have this actually. Woman, as a yin principle is too strong, that you already now have a lot of women in the West that live actually through their male principle. So they're successful at their jobs, but they are not successful in their female roles. This is also another trouble. Of course, we can endlessly speak about that, what is happening now in today's manifestation of yin and yang. I cannot mention everything, but I can say also to women that on one side, yeah, they can study maybe logic, but on the other side, women should not be ashamed of their female role, as it is happening already in the West. And for example, in these Eastern cultures, they know that woman is very important because she introduces sexuality to a man. She knows more about body. She understands better that connection with spirituality and sexuality through her second chakra. And that's what she teaches a man. And in Sri Lanka, in India, this philosophy is like based on woman culture. So we need to learn something about that. We, people from the West, let's say. And if we want to remember ancient philosophy, actually, we also find that there, when they ask Socrates in Plato's dialogue, Symposium, when they ask Socrates how he knows that what he knows, he says that he studies that from Diotima. And Diotima is a woman, she teaches Socrates about that, what Eros means. And that what Diotima teaches him is that Eros is a creative desire in a man. And she teaches him that this physical attraction of yin and yang moves to the understanding of beauty, from beauty as such to a moral, and finally to spiritual beauty. So the balance of male and female principles is the key of our creative life and every other life, actually. And finally, let's remember Taoists again, and the fact about the movement and the change of yin and yang that creates all elements, meaning it creates everything that exists on the world. So the relationship between yin and yin is not created and cannot give any results. The connection between yang and yang is not creative and cannot give any results. It can only be connection between yin and yang. And you can see that now that there are many manifestations of that, how they forbid to us to connect through yin and yang and to be creative. These crazy people who are speaking about New World Order. So take, for example, the GMO food. This food is seedless, so it cannot create fruit or life. If you want to plant seeds by using GMO technologies, then you always have to buy new seeds because their seed cannot produce life. It's not creative. And remember, please, that they all the time create clouds. So they don't want us to be connected with the sun. So the earth should be disconnected from the sun, which is the same thing as with GMO food. I spoke about these things in my video Technocracy. If you haven't seen it, please have a look at that. And most probably they insisted on those injections. I cannot say what, because this is also part of the same game. For example, take this, that now in Sri Lanka they had a rain as it is usually in monsoon time. That never happened in February and in March. So they also make clouds here, and try to disconnect Earth from the sky. And actually they want to interrupt this connection between that is absolutely essential between electricity and magnetism that we all the time have. Even they spoke during C19 madness, hypnosis, in the previous years, that men and women should not sleep together. So they actually want to forbid sexuality also. So think of that, we need to know about that, and we need to ignore, of course, their game and to support actually this healthy game between yin and yang. I just want to mention here at the end of this video that in the Vedic tradition, the key force appears the third force. And the third force actually creates the place for a man between the sky and earth. They have the third place. And as I believe to this tradition, of course, for me, maybe it's more natural to speak about that. But now in this video, I wanted to speak about yin and yang. Maybe some other time we will speak about Vedic tradition, which is not dualistic. But here I want to mention this dualistic yin-yang Taoism philosophy. And that is all for now. Of course, you can as always find all of the contacts above this video. You're free to schedule consultations with me if you want. I have a new also service that I offer. The name is The Change of Code, The Change of Perception. I made my method based on something that I learned before, which was Jungian psychology and theta healing. So this is a special method that works with the subconscious. And there are many other things that are on the web pages, symbolicthinking.net. So if you're interested, what do I offer? You can check that. If you like this video, sign up for my channel. Thank you very, very much in advance for that. I wish you happiness, joy, and luck, and come to Sri Lanka to enjoy this paradise. I will organize here also, hopefully, seminars and courses and some retreatments for my clients. So if you are interested in that, you can also write to me. So stay balanced, stay well, and see you next time.